Shalom and welcome to another edition of Parasha Talk. I'm Rabbi Elliot Malamet in Highland Park, New Jersey, at the Highland Park Conservative Temple Congregation, Anshe Emet. And joining me, my good friends, Rabbi Jeremy Kalmanovsky, Anshe Chesed, New York City, Rabbi Barry Chesler, Solomon Schechter Day School of Long Island. And we're all in different locations today, but today is day, was it 508, 509 in the hostage drama. Today we witnessed, if you could say that, observed, watched the Bibas funeral, which was just excruciating, painful. All the events leading up to that have been so deeply painful, and of course, the release of four more bodies over the next 24 hours. We're recording this on Wednesday, and the the potential unraveling of a deal and all of that. So we are in this zone of uncertainty. I want to say as usual, but our hearts and thoughts are still going with those who remain in captivity, those who are alive, and those who need to be brought back for a proper Jewish burial. We pray for their families as well, that they have comfort during what has been a very difficult time, and the comfort is really, zkukim lenechama. We need comfort. We turn to the parsha for comfort, and this is Parsha Truma, and Parsha Truma. With Parsha Truma, we begin really the last section of the book of Shmot. Truma tetzaveh kitisa vayakel pekudei, five parshiot that deal at great length with the construction of a tabernacle. There's a brief moment in the construction of the tabernacle dealing with the golden calf. It's not a brief moment, but it's a big rupture
A pregnant moment.
in the story. Um, and then, of course, the account of the construction of the tabernacle. Um, I want to ask this question. We haven't had a chance to pre-discuss this, but is the construction of a tabernacle the divine request? That is, you make me a sanctuary, they shall make me a sanctuary? Or do you think it's a response to something in Israel? I'll tell you why I'm at it. Just you read, commentaries, and I'm reading one person who says, look, we have midrashim, plenty of midrashim that this is a response that that the same way that in other examples, the Nachash Nechoshet, or some other examples in the Torah where the people seek something and then God responds. We just don't have the record of their asking, but the midrash that I'm referring to, I'll just read a line or two of it if I can find it. It basically goes like this. It says, Amru Yisrael lifnei Kadosh Baruch Hu. The people of Israel said to God, Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, Malchei Goyim, yesh lahem ohel. The kings of the nations, they have a tent, they have a shulchan, a table, a menorah, they have a lampstand, umiktar ketoret, and they have an incense thing, and they have all the taksisei mlucha. They have all the appurtenances of kingdom, but you don't have anything. And it goes on and goes on and goes on. And God says, I don't need it. And they say, well, we need it. So discuss. What do you think?
So, if I might speak first today, I think there's a central religious problem with an invisible God, and that is how to access that God. And, in the Midrash that you cited, I think all the people or gods that were being referred to had physical forms in some way, and our God has no physical form. And it's striking to me that the first thing that's built is the ark.
Yeah.
And as Martin Buber observed, this was the great paradox of biblical religion, because essentially you had an empty box representing the invisible God. That the box itself, the Aron, has borders, obviously, it's are given in the beginning verses of the Parsha. But originally, at least in Buber's understanding, I think correctly, there was supposed to be nothing in it. And so we have this quest for the physical, which we can never get quite get past. And we could see the Egel HaZahav, the golden calf, as a quest for the physical in that sense, and the building of both the tabernacle and later the temple, that we need something physical to accompany our spiritual lives because we believe, I think also correctly, that we are both physical and spiritual beings.
But
We are not separated.
is it physical space or is it physical objects? It's because, we derive from a lot of this, no, I mean, the Torah doesn't tell us how to build a synagogue or how to build, it doesn't give dimensions of a temple. It gives dimensions of these spaces, the inner space, the Kodesh Kodeshim, and the Kadosh, the outer space. Um, but not much more than that. And you know the we need something to latch on to, but I think what Judaism does in its history is it creates spaces, and we derive from the need to get together, the creation of space. I don't know, Jeremy, you have any?
You used an interesting. You said we carry space. We acquire space. We acquire spaces, and I think this is one of the interesting dynamics here. First of all, let me just note I'm off-site. I'm at a program here in the synagogue in Brooklyn, a fun program, and I'm in a computer and I've got no batteries, and so I will probably have to cut out before we finish the conversation with apologies. But
We're giving you
the temple is the core location for all of Am Yisrael. We're all supposed to flow to that. We're supposed to make pilgrimage, and the Beit HaMikdash is very, very central, and it gets destroyed. And in place of that, both in place, it's very central, but both before the temple and after the temple, instead of a space, there are spaces. What does God say in the end of Parshat Yitro? Wherever I mention my name, I will be there for you and I will bless you. And that does not mean, by the way, there's one special place. It means every place there's some accessibility of the divine. You have the same dynamic when King David says to Natan Hanavi at a certain point, similar to the Midrash that you quoted, I got this awesome wooden palace, and God's in a tent. That doesn't seem right. And Natan Hanavi, Nathan the prophet, David's court prophet, says, God has never asked for, in that rendition of the story, God has never asked for a special place. And then Solomon will build the special place. And all of Judaism was concentrated in there. But we know that what happened in history is that one single sacred space is not going to get the job done. In fact, what we have is a profusion of local synagogues and special, innumerable special places where people find access to the divine. So I think that Barry said it quite correctly. Something invisible is everywhere, something concentrated is in a single place, and both of those things are evident throughout the history of Judaism. Both have their pluses and minuses.
I want to add one more thing, if I might, that the verse that we've talked about in previous shows, Vasuli Mikdash V'Shachanti Petocham, that they shall make for me a sanctuary so that I may dwell amongst them, suggests that part of the issue is that the Beit HaMikdash, the Mishkan, they're supposed to be tools. They are a sacred space that allows God to dwell within the people. And what happens, I think, oftentimes is the space in effect becomes deified. And in a certain way, I suspect it can become an object of idol worship because it's supposed to be a tool. It's supposed to allow God to enter our lives. It's not supposed to be the sole focus of our spiritual being.
This is true, but there is a dialectic or paradox, and that's true in Solomon's speech, the amazing Solomon speech of First Kings chapter 8, and then I'll just give you the way that the medieval poet Yehuda Halevi riffed on Solomon's speech. The heavens can't hold you, but I've made you this special place. And the Yehuda Halevi's version is Galgal lo yisa'acha af ki chadrei ulam. the spheres cannot contain the fullness of the divine, and yet in the translation of Hillel, the translation of Hillel Halkin, the spheres cannot hold you, but a room can. Somehow the fullness of the divine is beyond space, and yet there are sacred spaces that we devote, and somehow the presence seems more in Eretz Yisrael, or the presence seems more in Jerusalem, or at the Kotel, or some synagogue that you love. So that paradox, I think, is part of spiritual life.
So I want to go to the next verse. You know, the we cite Vasuli Mikdash v'Shachanti b'Ducham. They shall make for me a sanctuary, dwell upon them, among them, and there's lots of sermonic material about that. And I haven't been in a synagogue where I haven't seen that verse on a plaque somewhere. Right? That's the donors for all of the synagogues. But
We love them. We love those donors.
what we miss is the next verse, and the next verse needs attention. Kechol asher ani mar'eh otcha. Everything that I show you, et tavnit mishkan, the formation or the shape of the mishkan, et tavnit kol kelav, the design of all of the implements, v'chein tasu. In other words, what is puzzling to me is that God, it says here, is showing something to Moses, and I'm stunned by the fact that we hardly pay attention to that that there's an idea here that Moses is on the mountain and that Moses is getting an architecture lesson, or Moses is getting, I don't know, I don't have my, any manuals here, but he's getting the blueprints, or he's getting, something conveyed to him, and and I'm going to say that it's conveyed to him in a way that he needs to visualize this, and therefore transfer that vision to someone else. It's what's the process going on here, and why is that important?
Let me throw in an asterisk question on this.
Yes.
Does the divine give Moses the specifics? If the divine gives Moses the specifics, what's the role of Bezalel and Oholiab, the artists? Now, is it that they got a clear and perfect picture, and then the hard part is translating that perfection to wood and copper and gold and a cloth? Or is there like actual creativity on the part of the artists? I like that second thought better. I like the second thought that the artists are contributors with their own creativity to the sacred space. But the verse about all that I will show you maybe makes it the opposite direction.
Well, what it could be is that Moses is the architect. He's the one who's going to provide the plans. And Bassalo and the Aholiab are the artisans. They're the actual craftspeople. And I think there's a great deal of art. I remember many years ago when I was in Europe, I went to a museum in Ireland which had a show of metalworking over a couple hundred years at the end of the first millennium. And it was striking to me that you could actually see how the artist's skill went up and down through this period of time. Not all art is equal and not all craft is equal. And when you see really great art, you understand that. You don't always understand it when you see, bad art.
So here's what we're assuming. We're assuming that Moses has this capability, and what kind of aptitudes or what kind of intelligences he has. Moses. We've already shown that Moses doesn't have organizational intelligence. Okay, that more he may have
He's lacking in executive function. That's what you're
no,
putting.
he's able. I think there is a certain. I mean, and we will see moments of his brilliant leadership later on, where he's able to represent the people to God and God to the people. I think that requires obviously, a capability beyond most human beings. But does he have artistic capability? Uh, and are we making too much out of Moses? I was teaching this earlier in the week, and I thought, there Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, these are extraordinary artistic geniuses. Okay, Michelangelo, had been a sculptor um, before whatever pope it was said to him, "I want you to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel." And he said, "I'm not a painter. I'm a sculptor." And he said, "No, you're a painter. You're going to do this." And sure enough, he created one of the great paintings, of all world civilization, and so. Are we saying here that Moses is able to receive a vision? Are we saying, or is this the artistic process? I mean, we all like enjoy music, and you'll talk to composers, or you listen to the way that musicians talk about songwriting, and they'll say, "It came to me. It came to me," or a poet, or a writer, or someone who creates something. They'll say, "I don't." I would it's muse or they won't identify it, but they're going to create something that has been communicated to them in some way. They have a vision, and their skill and aptitude and creative abilities are able to translate a vision into reality.
So what I would suggest is that Moses, the way he's described here, is the link between God and the people. And the Mishkan, when it is finally constructed, no longer needs Moshe to be the link between the people and God because they now have the Mishkan. And, I'm concerned a little bit less with Moses's role here because it doesn't really matter. God goes through him. It's Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe. And, I
You know,
want to come back to the way you began, Elliot, with whether the Mishkan is a response. So what do you make of the second verse of the Parsha, Vayikli Truma, that the people should bring for me or take for me a gift? And is that because they want to give God something or that God wants something from them?
I think there's a story here, as usual. I think the story is, it's like every shul that ever was in the diaspora, or maybe in Israel also, which is a bunch of Jews get together and say, we have a community. We need a place. We need a place. You know, the story of American Jewry was, we need a place to educate our children. We need a place to make a presentation to the rest of the world. We have a dozen different reasons why we need to build a building, but we need to sit down and build a building. And how much are you in for? Are you in for 100? You in for 100? And they go around the room, and these guys who were small businessmen, or maybe larger businessmen, or people who had some wherewithal, organized themselves, created their committees, and put the money together. I mean, we have stories in my synagogue of people who collected money and kept it in paper bags, for years. And then when it came to, you know, creating the building fund, they just produced a paper bag with hundreds of dollars and said, "This is our down payment."
that was a
And
better instrument. I didn't get interest on that. My batteries are about to go, so I may end up just picking up by accident. But this question about, you know, the this is a famous controversy between Rashi and Nachmanides. Rashi says the Torah is told out of order, that the commands for the Mishkan happen after the golden calf because God realized what God did not realize the first round is that they needed the focus and the shiny object, and so it's kind of an accommodation to their needs. Ramban says the opposite. Says the whole point is v'no'adti lechasham miben akruvim. I'll meet you between the cherubs over the ark. The whole point was to get the people ready for that, and the golden calf was like a hiccup, a delay, but not central to the Mishkan. I like the Nachmanides. I like the thought that the whole point is to create the possibility of connection. But I also find the power in the Rashi explanation that they needed something that the human beings needed something they were not otherwise getting. And with
yeah,
that, my friends, I will see you on Parshat
it's
Tetzaveh. You guys can continue the
all right.
conversation.
Good.
Good
All
Shabbos,
right,
everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
So we got a few more minutes here, Barry. Just we'll carry it on by ourselves. I know that this is, some of our viewers and listeners, they love Jeremy so much, they just cut
They'll
out.
turn it off here.
No, no. Okay. So, when you look at this, when you think about this, this question: is it how is it responding to people, and how what is it that we need in terms of both objects and space? And we've talked a little bit about.
Well, I think that, every relationship needs something physical to keep it together, right? We get gifts for people that we love. We receive gifts. We exchange cards. Our lives would be impoverished without these physical elements to them. And, maybe the point is that the real meeting between God and Israel is the recognition that each needs the other. And the Mishkan is an answer to that problem.
So let's go back to what you said about with Buber at the beginning, because Buber is saying, making the Aron, the ark, an enclosure of absence, basically of emptiness. So that I kind of resist that, because I do want to see the ark as the repository of the covenant, and that what defines the sacred space of Israel is that there's a covenant between God and the people of Israel, and that's the bond, that's the relationship, and the safety deposit box, as we've said in the past, I think, is the place where that covenant is located. The same way that, literally, if you had something precious, you wouldn't keep it in your home. You would keep it in the bank at a safety deposit box, whether they're documents or pieces of jewelry or other precious objects, and then you'd have to access it by going to the bank and bringing your key, etc., and then only taking it out at special occasions. I think there's what to be said for that, only because you know I'm not compelled by the empty box.
So let me suggest something else then. I actually like it a lot, and that's okay that we disagree. But what I wanted to suggest is that in my admittedly rushed reading of the description of the ark, there's no purpose given to it. So I think that it doesn't say that this is going to house anything. It's just that you build it and you gold plate it.
No, no, no,
And
no, no, no. It's al aron ha'idut, but no
no, no,
additive.
but it doesn't say that you're going to put anything in it.
No, it does.
Where?
It's in
I
verse
could have missed
21.
it. And
Okay, chapter 25, verse 21. Venatati et kaporet al aron. I'll place the cuff,
the
the
covering, yeah.
covering, okay, al aron, mimala on top, ve'el haron, and to the box, titen et ha'idut. That's where you place the testimony.
So what is the edut?
Asher
Generally,
eten elecha, the thing that I will give you. In other words, I'm going to give you a document. I'm going to give you, I mean, in this case, it's stone, and again, I wouldn't go too far in depth about its size, because if it was a large size, the way we have it pictured in most of our synagogues, you wouldn't be able to carry it. I'm assuming that the tablet is no bigger than an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, right? And that is not something that is particularly heavy, and will fit inside a box that is the
so
size of a
okay. So the
cubit.
question then is the edut the way you describe it representational or literary? In other words, does it have a meaningful text to it, or is it just suggestive of what the Torah is going to
They
become in
do it
later
as the
generations?
commandments. They do it as the Ten Commandments. It's the Luchot Brit, the covenant. We like to think of the commandments, the Luchot, as being two tablets, commandments 1 to 5 and commandments 6 to 10. But rather think of them as two copies of the commandments, full set, two full sets, and that one belongs to God and one belongs to Israel, and they're both located in the same box, because that's the holiest box, the holiest thing that Israel has with it, and the edut is what represents God. God is not cannot be represented by any kind of physical representation. Right? God
Right.
sits above the kruvim, But God's word is represented by the luchot, and we have to locate that in the box.
Okay, so I mean that's
So continuing from there, okay, we have the Shulchan, and we have the different things that will be the Mishkan will be made of. Um, and it takes us all the way to the end of the parsha, basically Kol Amudei HaChatzer, all of it's portable, and that the Mishkan is to be, transported and taken down, taken apart, brought up, etc. Um, what a we are given the model of a portable Mishkan. Is that the model of a portable religion?
right. But then, well, so I'm not sure because I think for moderns such as ourselves, with the Torah not necessarily given verbatim to Moshe at Mount Sinai, it comes about after the portable religion ceased to exist.
Hmm.
So what I wanted to suggest before is that one of the things that we don't always appreciate is that history always intervenes. That we attempt to do certain things with good intentions and with noble hearts, and they don't always work out.
Hmm.
And I was going to suggest before you corrected me about the ark being not being empty, is that it comes to embody, certainly for the rabbis, not only the luchot, but the broken luchot.
Yes.
Um, because history matters. And in our relationship with God, especially the way that you phrased it earlier, that God comes to realize that we need something physical, is that history is always going to matter, that religion is not meant to be static. And I think that's part of the symbol of the portable religion. The danger of the temple-based religion is that temples, by definition, are static, unless you live in a country plagued by earthquakes. They don't, and we often forget that these great monuments that don't move are not necessarily what we were originally after, and maybe what we're trying to reclaim yet again.
No, I think we as a religion that has developed over thousands of years, our adaptability has been in our portability, and we've I would say we've looked to the model of the Mishkan as a kind of inspiration that we and we in the same way that we look to the wandering in the desert as the archetype of the Jewish story, that we wander throughout the world, and we take that which is essential for our lives in law and in lore and Torah, and we're constantly making that accessible in every place that we go. And so, our history becomes a kind of mirror to the primary history, which is already in the Torah. Yeah.
So here would be a good place to mention that this Shabbat is Shabbat Shekalim, the first of the four special Shabbatot before Pesach, and the official beginning to our season of redemption.
Indeed.
And it points both backwards to the past and forward to the future. So we would hope that we would merit the redemption in our own time.
And that is a good place to end our Parsha talk this week. Wishing everyone a beautiful Shabbat. Thinking again of Klal Yisrael during this challenging time, and for our friend Rabbi Jeremy Kalmanowski, we want to say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
See you next week on the next edition of Parsha Talk. Bye bye.